Welcome to the Deep Dive. You're here because, like us, you want to cut through the noise, get straight to what matters.
And today we're diving into something pretty crucial, the ethics of market research.
Yeah, it affects businesses, obviously, but also, frankly, all of us as consumers, especially now with, well, data being everywhere.
Exactly. Think of this as your guide to why these ethical considerations aren't just nice extras. They're fundamental.
Right, essential for building trust, ensuring things are fair. We've got some great material to unpack today.
We do. We'll be looking at the core principles behind ethical research, how tech's changing everything.
For better and for worse sometimes.
For better and for worse, yeah. And also some really interesting ways innovation can actually promote ethics.
Plus how companies can build that ethical culture and, the big challenges that are still out there.
Our goal is really to give you that solid overview, those key aha moments, without getting totally lost in the weeds.
Okay, so let's jump in. Looking at the sources, a big theme is these core ethical principles. It really seems to come down to a balancing act.
That's a good way to put it. Balancing the need for insights, which businesses need, with protecting consumer rights and, importantly, keeping the research itself sound, honest.
And transparency seems like pillar number one.
Absolutely foundational. It means being upfront with participants, telling them clearly, what data are we collecting? How are we using it? Where is it stored?
And getting explicit consent, especially for the sensitive stuff, right? Health info, finances.
Oh, definitely. Explicit consent is vital there. And interestingly, some of the material suggests that being radically transparent, more than just legally required, can actually build serious trust. Maybe even give a competitive edge.
That makes total sense. If you're open, people feel more secure. Which leads right into the next big one that kept popping up, protecting consumer privacy. It's described as non-negotiable.
And it has to be. Anonymizing data whenever possible. That's not just like a suggestion. It's pretty much essential practice, according to these sources.
So you get the insights, but without exposing individuals.
Exactly. And tied to that is robust data security. It's not optional. It's fundamental to prevent breaches, protect personal details. The risk is just too high otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing that really stood out was this idea of inclusion and avoiding bias. You can't just poll a tiny specific group and expect fair or accurate results, can you?
No, and it's amazing how easily bias can creep in, sometimes unintentionally. The sources talk about the ethics of, say, manipulating participants or twisting findings.
Or outright deception, like hiding what a survey is really about.
Right. That kind of deception isn't just bad methodology. It's flagged as a serious ethical breach. It messes up the results and destroys trust. Clear communication about the objectives is just crucial.
Okay, so those are the foundations. But then technology enters the picture, and wow, things get complicated fast. The articles really dig into this transformation.
They do. Big data, AI, social media, geolocation, these have completely changed the game.
Let's talk big data first. The power there is incredible, right? Understanding consumer patterns, tailoring marketing.
Huge potential, yeah. The level of personalization possible now is unprecedented,
Yeah.
But connect that back to transparency and consent.
Ah, right. How is all that data being gathered? Often, it feels like it's happening without us really clicking. I agree, in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
Third-party cookies, tracking.
That's the concern highlighted. Collection and use without truly explicit, informed consent. It's a major friction point.
It feels like we leave digital breadcrumbs everywhere, and they're just vacuumed up.
Yeah.
When you add AI into the mix.
Yeah, AI algorithms crunching all this data, finding insights, personalizing things, even nudging decisions. But the sources raise a critical flag. AI learns from data.
And if that data is already biased.
Exactly. If historical data has biases baked in, and it often does, the AI can actually perpetuate or even amplify those biases. That's a huge ethical challenge.
Okay, what about social media and geolocation? Social media seems like this massive ready-made focus group.
It's a goldmine for opinions and behaviors, no doubt. But ethically, scraping that data without consent. The material is pretty clear. Often unethical, sometimes illegal.
There's that blurry line again, isn't there?
Yeah.
Public post versus private information.
Very blurry. And the risk of misuse is high. Just because it's online doesn't mean it's fair game for any kind of research.
And geolocation. Tracking movements for local ads. Powerful, but potentially invasive.
Hugely powerful for localized marketing, yes. But the privacy concerns are significant. Are people aware they're being tracked? Have they agreed to how that location data is used? Often, the answer seems to be no.
So it all circles back to needing a much more transparent approach.
Absolutely. The sources really hammer this home. Consent, fairness, accountability, these need to be front and center to make sure technology serves ethical standards, not undermines them.
But it's not all doom and gloom. The articles also point to opportunities, ways to innovate ethically. It's not just about dodging problems.
Right. It's about creating opportunities, building trust, loyalty, sustainable growth through ethical practices. Think about privacy-enhancing technologies, PEs.
Key T's. Tell me more.
Okay, so these are fascinating because they aim for that dual goal, get insights while protecting privacy. The sources mention things like differential privacy.
Which adds statistical noise, kind of fuzzies the data.
Exactly, makes it harder to identify individuals.
Yeah.
And federated learning, where AI models train on data locally on your device maybe, without the raw data ever being sent to a central server.
Okay, that sounds genuinely promising, getting the analysis done without centralizing all the sensitive stuff. What about blockchain? We hear about that for security.
Yeah, connecting it to transparency, blockchain offers potential. Imagine an unchangeable, auditable record of consent. You could see exactly what you agreed to, who's using your data, how.
That could really boost consumer confidence, couldn't it?
Potentially, yes,
Huh.
giving people a clear view and maybe more control.
And it's not just about fancy tech, is it? There's a human side to ethical innovation, too.
Definitely. The articles mention human-centric approaches, like actually involving consumers more directly, offering real, meaningful incentives for participating, not just, pennies.
And giving people genuine control, easy opt-outs, the right to delete their data.
That control aspect is huge, putting the individual back in the driver's seat regarding their own information.
And then there's ethical AI design itself, building fairness in from the start.
Crucial. Prioritizing fairness, accountability, transparency when you design the AI systems. Actively working to spot and reduce bias in the training data. Ensuring data is used responsibly.
That sounds like it needs teamwork. Researchers, ethicists, tech people talking to each other.
Collaboration is key, according to the sources. You need all those perspectives to embed ethics properly.
So it looks like if businesses combine these new technologies with a real focus on empowering consumers,
They don't just meet regulations, they build trust. They can actually gain a competitive advantage by making ethics a core strategy, not just a compliance checkbox.
okay, so that's the what. But how do businesses actually make this happen? How do they build that ethical culture?
Well, the sources emphasize it's not a one-off thing. It needs commitment from the top, continuous education, strong policies.
Starting with clear guidelines.
Yes, comprehensive ethical guidelines spelling out acceptable practices. And crucially, these need regular updates. Technology moves fast, societal views evolve, the guidelines have to keep up.
Makes sense. And training everyone involved must be critical.
Absolutely. Training on ethical principles, data protection laws, regular sessions to keep teams up to date on new challenges, best practices. It has to be ongoing.
The articles also mention independent auditors. What's the thinking there?
Bringing in an outside perspective, auditors can assess practices objectively, check compliance, spot areas for improvement without internal biases.
Like a health check for their ethical processes.
Sort of, yeah. And again, reinforcing consumer control. Clear communication, easy consent, simple ways to withdraw. That has to be part of the culture.
And looking forward, the pace of tech isn't slowing down. Quantum computing, more advanced AI.
Right. The need for ethical oversight is only going to grow. The sources predict, probably correctly, stricter regulations down the line, more pressure for privacy-first approaches, more investment in ethical innovation.
So the takeaway seems to be, businesses that really prioritize consumer rights and transparency aren't just doing the right thing.
They're also doing the smart thing. They're positioning themselves for success in a world where consumers are increasingly privacy conscious. It's about turning ethical challenges into opportunities.
Aligning innovation with values.
Precisely. Seeing ethics as a guide for innovation, not a barrier.
But let's be realistic, it's not always easy, is it? Balancing that drive for innovation with protecting consumer rights throws up some real challenges.
That's a very important point. Innovation often strains traditional ethical rules. Think about consent. The sources highlight how old models those super long, dense terms and conditions.
Yeah, the ones nobody reads before clicking agree.
Exactly. They just don't work well in the digital age. There's a real need for simpler, clearer consent processes that people can actually understand.
Make it truly informed consent, not just legal cover. And what about that tension between personalization and privacy? We like relevant stuff, but
But it relies on detailed profiles, often using sensitive data. Finding that sweet spot between helpful personalization and creepy surveillance,
Mhm.
it's a constant balancing act, a major ongoing challenge.
And the AI bias issue isn't going away either.
No, because fundamentally, algorithms reflect their training data. If the data's biased, the AI output can be discriminatory, even unintentionally.
So you need constant vigilance, careful oversight, diverse data.
Yes. Continuous effort to ensure fairness and representative data inputs. And one more complexity the sources mention, navigating all the different international data laws.
Oh, right. GDPR in Europe, CCPA in California, others popping up. It must be a nightmare for global companies.
It makes a unified research approach very difficult. You need sophisticated systems just to stay compliant everywhere. It's resource intensive.
Okay, so wrapping this up, we've covered a lot based on these materials. The core ethical principles, transparency, privacy, fairness.
The huge impact of technology, big data, AI, both the opportunities and the ethical hurdles.
Then the potential for ethical innovation using tech like PETs and blockchain for good, alongside human-centric approaches.
The absolute necessity of building an ethical culture within organizations, guidelines, training, oversight.
And finally, those persistent challenges. Getting consent right, balancing personalization and privacy, tackling AI bias, and navigating that global patchwork of regulations, all while respecting you, the consumer.
And it's worth remembering that statistic from the 2024 survey mentioned in the sources. 73% of consumers say they're more likely to trust companies that are clear about data use.
73%. That really drives home the point about transparency, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Trust is built on openness.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening. Remember the power you hold as a consumer. When you demand transparency, when you seek control over your data.
Your awareness, your choices, they really can push companies towards better, more ethical practices. You're part of the force for change.
Absolutely. Your choices matter in shaping this landscape. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.